Salvete, viatores, and welcome back to Let's Translate Eutropius' Breviarium Historiae Romanae aborbe condita. Last time we saw a couple niche uses for some common words like habeo and ah. Pyrrhus' peace offer was also rebuffed, and he fought another battle against the Romans. Eutropius said he lost, but most other sources say otherwise. Eutropius also made another claim about Roman captives being declared infames that is very poorly sourced. For the final time, here are the main sources I am referencing for the Pyrrhic War. And now, here we go. The final chapter of Pyrrhus of Epirus.
Interjecto anno contra Pyrrhum Fabricius est missus, qui prius inter legatos sollicitari non potuerat, quarta regni parte promissa. So interjecto anno, a little ablative absolute. Interjectus is a perfect past participle from interjectio, which is literally like to throw between, like to throw or place in between. So literally with a year thrown in between, but it's basically after a year passed. Because it's in the sense that a year was thrown in between this and what happened in the last chapter. So after a year passed, contra Pyrrhum Fabricius est missus. So against Pyrrhus, Fabricius was sent, est missus, another perfect passive participle from mitto. We've seen that before. I just wonder why est is first here, because usually it would be missus est, or even just missus. But for some reason, just the est is first. It's weird. And I don't see a particular reason why. But it's still perfectly readable. So, after a year passed, Fabricius was sent against Pyrrhus, to put it in a more English word order. Qui, who, referencing Fabricius, Prius, an adverb meaning before or prior, inter legatos, inter is like among, so among the ambassadors, because if you remember from chapter 12, just a couple chapters ago, Fabricius was part of a sort of embassy to Pyrrhus to discuss terms to release captives that were taken during a battle. So who kind of implied was before among ambassadors. Sollicitari is infinitive, passive infinitive, as you can tell by the I at the end of the word. Non potuerat. Potuerat, a pluperfect form from possum. So, who had not been able, sollicitari, to be tempted, I guess, among ambassadors. Maybe a better order for this would be who before had not been able to be tempted among ambassadors. Quarta regni parte promissa. I guess this could be I think this might be an ablative absolute, because definitely, I guess maybe, well, no, this is just number. Regni is actually genitive describing the part. Promissa is definitely a participle from promitto, which means to promise. So, like, having been promised a quarter part of the kingdom. Yeah, I think that sounds about right. So for the whole sentence then, after a year passed, Fabricius was sent against Pyrrhus. Ooh, but what if, to tie it better with the relative clause, which also I need to close there, maybe after a year, sent against Pyrrhus was Fabricius. Maybe we could do that. Who before had not been able to be tempted among ambassadors, having been promised a quarter part of a kingdom. I think that seems pretty good. And if you, like, normally I would go more into the story, but I already did in chapter 12 a couple videos ago, because that's where this really happened. So if you want to know more about this and more about the sourcing of this story, then go watch Book 2, Chapter 12. Tum cum vicinacasta ipse et rex haberent. Yeah, let's do this first. So then, when, because we don't have any ablative here, so it has to be the conjunction cum for when. Subjects ipse and rex, when he, like, usually ipse could be himself, but I'd say just he and the king, haberent, had, I'd say just have, it's imperfect subjunctive, which is usually like was having or used to have, but I'd say just had makes more sense here. But when he and the king had neighboring camps is literally what this is. Vicina comes from vicinus, which, yeah, means near or neighboring. So then when he and the king had neighboring camps, medicus Pyrrhi nocte ad eum venit. Medicus, you probably could guess from medical, a doctor, Pyrrhi of Pyrrhus. Ad eum, to him, nocte, just ablative of time when, so at night, or in the night, when it came. A doctor of Pyrrhus came to him in the night. Which, that's a little suspect. Promittens, venenose Pyrrhum occisorum. So promittens, this is a present active participle. Again, from promitto, like promissa, it means promising. So he came to him in the night, promising Pyrrhum occisorum. Occisorum is I think it's a future active participle from occide, or occido, which we've seen a few times before. And I'm pretty sure, I guess, literally promising he would kill Pyrrhus, or I guess say is the subject of this, actually. So, this is sort of a different kind of indirect statement. We've seen indirect statements using, like, dixit or dicere for just for something someone is saying. This is a little different with promising, but it works basically the same way. So in indirect statements, you've got your, like, saying verb, which in this case is just a participle, and the subject would be in the accusative. And normally your verb would be in the infinitive, but here it's just a future active participle. But it's essentially saying, promising he would kill, I guess he would kill or will kill Pyrrhus. Veneno. Veneno is from venenum. Venenum, I think. Yeah, venenum. So then I guess it would be veneno? Either way, venenum, venom or poison. So, promising he would kill Pyrrhus with poison. Again, not great. C, if sibi aliquid pollicerator. Our verb, pretty clear there. I think aliquid is the object. So if, oh wait, this is, right, this is also technically a condition. Maybe, wait. Okay. So apparently, promitto often takes the future participle. The future infinitive? Hold on. Is that a future infinitive? Okay. Yeah, okay. So apparently, never mind. So I know what's going on in this section now, more specifically, because promitto, going by the Project Gutenberg notes, promitto often takes a future a future infinitive. And ocasorum esse, well, ocasorum plus the form of the, well, actually, no, yeah, just ocasorum esse is the future infinitive from occido. It's just he has opted to leave out the essay, which Latin authors often do. It's just this also looks like the future participle, which is kind of funny. But then I don't know what's going on with the condition, actually. Because this looks like it would be a more of a past condition. Oh, wait. Yeah, so this would actually be a present contrary to fact condition going by the form of pollicerator. Imperfect subjunctive indicates present contrary to fact. But I guess maybe promitto, overrules that for the result? So then it uses the future infinitive instead of the imperfect subjunctive. That's weird. Man, we're seeing interesting combinations with conditions so much in just these few chapters. That's so weird. So, but yeah. If pollicerator, this is from polliceor, which means to promise or offer. More offer sounds better. If he was offered. Oh wait, no. It is yeah. If aliquid something is offered to him, sibi the dative. So indirect object to him. So he was promising he was promising to kill Pyrrhus, or he would kill Pyrrhus with poison if something was offered to him. Basically, he wanted some big reward for essentially ending the war. So let's go over this whole sentence to put it all together. Then, when he and the king had neighboring camps, a doctor of Pyrrhus came to him in the night, promising he would kill Pyrrhus with poison if something was offered to him. Quem fabricius vinctum reduci usit, ad dominum Periochae dici quae contra caput eos medicus pobondiset. So, quem, we're just starting out with a relative clause. Quem is the accusative form of qui or quis. So, whom, fabricius, our subject, vinctum actually kind of modifies quem. Reduci definitely looks like an infinitive, passive infinitive. Usit, verb from eubeo. Ad dominum. What the heck is going on over there? Boy's knocking stuff around. Periochae. Dici. Quae contra caput. Caput eus. medicus spobondicet. Let's work with that for now. So whom, actually, would it be there? Yeah. So whom Fabricius usit, ordered, reduci, we saw, did we see that? I think we did last chapter. Did we see a reduco somewhere? I don't remember. Either way, it should be pretty clear to see duco, ducere, to lead, and re, like, like return. So, to be led back, vinctum, chained. This should be, I'm pretty sure this is a perfect passive participle. Yes, a perfect passive participle from vinctio, which means to bind or tie or chain. So whom Fabricius ordered to be led back, chained, ad dominum, to his master, which implies that the doctor of Pyrrhus was a slave, which is not uncommon for the ancient world. And to be told to Pyrrhus, dici, passive infinitive from dico, dicere, same verb that dixit comes from. So, and to be told to Pyrrhus, or is it for Pyrrhus to be told, quae, I guess sort of the things which his doctor spobondicet, from spondeo, which also means to another promise or vowing kind of verb. His doctor had, I guess, had proposed, maybe? Well, it's not quite proposing. I don't know, I almost feel like that's the best way to translate this. Because I don't really want to use the same word in English for two different Latin verbs. And clearly, promittens, promissa, those are clearly promise. But spondeo, I think I just have to go with promise here. So what his doctor had promised against his head. And you could almost even make the argument that Eos is kind of going with both caput and medicus. So whom Fabricius ordered to be led back, chained to his lord, and for Pyrrhus to be told, well, I don't know about that one, because Pirro, of course, is dative, but dici is passive, so it should be the subject that gets told rather than the indirect object, right? I think this is the closest I got, though. For Pyrrhus, well, to be told. Oh, and okay, that's it. The quae is the implied subject of dici. So, and that which the doctor had promised against his head to be told to Pyrrhus. There we go. That's what it all is. Okay, one more time the whole sentence. Whom Fabricius ordered to be led back, chained to his master, and that which the doctor had promised against his head to be told to Pyrrhus. Yes, I think that sounds good. Yay. Also, I am sorry if you hear a bunch of background noise. Those are my rats making a ruckus. Like the boys they are. Okay. Tum rex admiratus eum dixisse fertor. Then the king, I guess having admired him, because this is perfect past participle. Yeah, I guess the king having admired him, is fertor. Fertor is from a verb that... Oh, wait, no! This is another niche use for a verb. So it's from ferro, actually. It's weird. It is it's passive, just the present passive third person. It's different, but like, normally it's like to bear or carry, or we've even seen it as consider, I'm pretty sure. No, that was habeo that we saw it for consider, I think. But here, it's more like report or narrate or cite. So, the king, having admired him, is reported to have said, dixisse, which I think is pluperfect infinitive. No, just perfect infinitive. But yeah, the king, having admired him, is reported to have said, ille est Fabricius. That is Fabricius. Qui difficilius ab honestate quam sol a cursus suo averti potest. So that is Fabricius. Qui, who, difficilius is adverb, is an adverbial form that means like, it's the comparative of difficile. So difficile just means with difficulty, basically. So difficilius, more difficultly. Actually, let's go to the verb who is able, averti, to be averted. You can see it's very clearly, like, we get avert from it. To be averted, or to, I guess, be moved more difficultly from honesty, quam, we saw this just last chapter, than sol, the son, a cursus suo. Cursus, the course, like the cursus honorum, the course of honors. So the son from its course. So that is Fabricius, whom it is more difficult, or no, I want to put it a more naturally English way, but I kind of want to stick to Latin. Who is able to be averted more difficultly from honesty than the sun from its course. So, to put this last sentence together, then the king, having admired him, is reported to have said, that is Fabricius, who is able to be averted more difficultly from honesty than the sun from its course. So this poison plot that Eutropius spends half of this chapter on, I was only able to find in 3 of my sources. Plutarch, of course, because he's got, like, everything, Zonaras, and the Periochae. And only Plutarch gives a detailed account, including a full letter from Fabricius to Pyrrhus. Likely made up, of course, just for Plutarch's narrative. But nothing from these contradicts Eutropius other than, once again, timeline things. Remember, the meeting with Fabricius for the captives that was mentioned at the first sentence was after the embassy with Cineas in Plutarch's narrative. So he says that this is where Pyrrhus releases the captives without ransom, because he was so enamored with Fabricius for being so honorable. Zonaras actually also says that Pyrrhus released captives without ransom here, but he specifically says he released them again, because Pyrrhus already released the captives from the Battle of Heraclea before this, and now I suppose there are just more captives after Asculum. Also, Plutarch didn't give a name to this physician, but Zonaras says his name was Nicias. Though he also doesn't specify that this is a doctor, he just says that some guy named Nicias went to Fabricius and offered to poison Pyrrhus. The Periochae also don't have anything new to add. In fact, they don't mention Pyrrhus's reaction to the letter from Fabricius. Honestly, I expected more sources to mention this story, but oh well. We can at least assume Livy proper and Cassius Dio do go into detail, since the Periochae and Zonaras are based on each respectively. Livy probably was using this to gas up Fabricius a ton, since he's really, really patriotic for Rome. Anyway, moving on. Tum rex ad Siciliam profectus est. Then the king to Sicily, profectus est, I believe we've seen this before, proceeded. So then the king proceeded to Sicily. Eutropius doesn't go into this at all, but I just want to give a short overview of Pyrrhus's adventures in Sicily, because he does spend a decent bit of time here. In fact, this is like half his time outside of Greece, because I think his total time conquering Italian soil is like 6 years, I think, and 3 of them are spent on Sicily. So, in fact, let me not just do small citations for a second. Here are all the sources that go into, or at least mention, Pyrrhus going to Sicily. So there's a lot, but only a couple give specific anecdotes and go into it. So I'm just going to try to be brief, and whatever specific anecdotes from the more detailed sources will get citations. So those will be what citations you see on screen from here on. If you just want the whole expedition, just read these. Otherwise, let's get into it. So, Pyrrhus didn't go take a day trip on a whim. The people of the city of Syracuse, the most powerful Greek city on the island, begged Pyrrhus for help against the Carthaginians. And I think we've seen the Carthaginians mentioned before? So actually, Eutropius has not mentioned the Carthaginians at all so far, which it does make some sense. The Carthaginians aren't super involved with the Romans at this point. They have made a treaty with Rome, but neither has really come within, like, butting distance of each other's sphere of influence. But now they're about to be connected by a shared threat in Pyrrhus. And Pyrrhus actually also received an embassy, according to Plutarch, asking him to return to Macedon and take the throne after the last king, a son of Ptolemy, nicknamed Caraunos, the Thunderbolt, had his head put on a pike by some rampaging Gauls. Things are not going well over in Greece right now. It's a time. But Pyrrhus chooses to go conquer Sicily. He's got some claims. He married the daughter of Agathocles, who was the previous tyrant / leader of Syracuse. So he thinks he can make a kingdom in Sicily. So he goes to Sicily. And honestly, this is basically second verse, same as the first. Pyrrhus did really well against the Carthaginian forces on the island. At first, pushing them all the way west to their fortress at Lilybaeum, though that's honestly from memory, and I couldn't find any source specifically citing the fortress of Lilybaeum. However, he couldn't fully defeat them, and had really pissed off his Sicilian allies by being a bit more authoritarian than what they had bargained for, which is kind of similar to what he did with his Italian allies. Because, he's a king. He does that, and he's very focused on war, so he kind of puts into effect martial law wherever he goes. But yeah, and if you couldn't guess, taking this trip to Sicily, basically abandoning his Italian allies, really alienated them from him. In fact, once Pyrrhus lost all support in Sicily and returned to Italy, most of his previous allies had either been crushed by the Romans, which we'll see in this next sentence, or just refused to support him again. So, yeah, not a good look for Pyrrhus. And according to Plutarch, as Pyrrhus is about to leave Sicily to return to fight the Romans again, he is said to have told his friends, "What a wrestling ground we are leaving for the Carthaginians and the Romans," foreshadowing events that will come later. But I do want to tell you an anecdote only in Plutarch, because I love it. And I know it probably didn't happen, but I find it so entertaining. So, Pyrrhus had been having a rough time of it, coming back from Sicily. He had lost his fleet to the Carthaginians and has been harassed by a group called the Mamertines, who we will be seeing later, while marching back through Italy to Tarentum. Pyrrhus got hit in the head by one of them while trying to keep them back from his army, so he withdrew. One of the Mamertines, seeing this, headed out way in front of the rest of them and taunted Pyrrhus, probably saying he was a coward or something. And Pyrrhus, already probably very frustrated with everything that had been going wrong, was so infuriated he turned around and cut this man in two, with one slash, down the middle from head to toe. The Mamertines then went like, and backed off. Just terrified them just by basically using a level 3 super on him, on just one guy, to send a message. This little bit has just always stuck with me ever since I first read The Life of Pyrrhus. It's just so out there, I love it. But of course, speaking of his allies getting crushed while he was in Sicily, Fabricius victis Lucanis et Samnitibus triumphavit. Fabricius victis Lucanis et Samnitibus triumphavit. So Fabricius triumphavit, triumphed, which we've seen previously in Eutropius. I think this would be he triumphed, not, I guess, technically, like, over the defeated Lucanians and Samnites. Either that, or it's an ablative absolute. After the Lucanians and Samnites were defeated, Fabricius triumphed, or, held a triumph. I think that makes more sense. So Fabricius triumphed after the Lucanians and Samnites were conquered or defeated. Which, yeah, Pyrrhus not being there. Pyrrhus is kind of a whole glue keeping everything together. And he left, and the Lucanians and Samnites could not hold out against the Romans, just as they were not able to in the past. Consules deinde, Manlius Curius dentatus et Cornelius Lentulus adversum Perrum missi sunt. So the consuls deinde, then, Manlius Curius dentatus et Cornelius Lentulus. At first I thought the M here would be Marcus, but apparently the abbreviated M could also be Manlius, and according to Plutarch, this is Manlius Curius Dentatus. So, yeah, the consuls Manlius Curius Dentatus and Cornelius Lentulus adversum Perrum missi sunt. Were sent against Pyrrhus. And honestly, adversum looks like a participle. I mean, it can be a participle, but it can also be a preposition taking the accusative. Yeah, that's all I got. Curios contra eum pugnavit, exercitum eos cecerit, ipsum Tarentum fugavit, castra cepit. So, Curios, Manlius Curius Dentatus, contra eum, against him, and pugnavit, from pugno,
pugnare, fought. So Curius fought against him. Exercitum eus gecidit. He, let's be unique here, smote his army. And this could be either from Cado or Kaido. I'm not sure which one, honestly, because they both mean similar things. Oh, actually, looking at the Wiktionary, I think it might be Kaido, because one of the meanings from this is to defeat decisively. So, like, heavy losses to the enemy side. So, like, he decisively defeated his army. But I like he smote his army, so we're going to go with that. Because it implies the big victory. Ipsum Tarentum fugavit. Whoa. Don't know what happened there. Fugavit. I think well, no, because that would be ipse for the subject. I think this is a similar thing to, I think it was chapter 12 for the Battle of Asculum, where Eutropius said that literally Pyrrhus retreated himself. Oh wait, not the Battle of Asculum. That was when he had won at Heraclea, but was worried about the consular army following him. So he retreated himself back to Campania. I think it's a similar thing here, where he fled himself to Tarentum. Tarentum being just accusative of direction, like movement, and ipsum, you could just say he fled to Tarentum, but literally he fled himself to Tarentum. Gacida cepit. He captured the camps. Camps? Because isn't that plural? No? Okay, never mind. That could be singular as well. It's just camp. He captured the camp. So, big victory. Curius fought against him being Pyrrhus, smote his army. He fled himself to Tarentum. He captured his camp. Which, by the way, Eutropius, don't switch subjects multiple times in the middle of your sentences, please. That is confusing. But otherwise, yeah, very simple sentence. But this is referencing the Battle of Maleventum, also known as the Battle of Beneventum. Just at this point, Maleventum was the name of the town that this happened near, not Beneventum. That would come later. Which I actually thought it was as a result of this battle that the name of the town was changed, because Maleventum is, like, it's got a negative connotation. Beneventum is, like, a good name, because you could probably tell. Male, bad, bene, good. But apparently it's, I could not find any sources saying that the name change was because of this battle. If you can find anything saying, like, that this battle was the reason, let me know. But I think that was just a misconception in my head. But anyways, the sources. So only Plutarch and Dionysius actually give a decent description of the battle. Zonaras gives a very brief description. Justin in the Periochae only mentioned there was a battle and Pyrrhus retreated, just like Eutropius. So the main narrative of this battle is that Pyrrhus attacked one of the consuls before the other could provide support. Hence why it's only Curius who fought against Pyrrhus and not Cornelius Lentulus. And the consul was entrenched on high ground. To make up for this, Pyrrhus planned to attack during the night. It's just too bad that this caused a lot of his men to get so lost they didn't even get to the camp before sunrise. Because apparently there were a bunch of woods around too, and nobody really knew where they were going. And apparently they even brought elephants with them, which, how do you even sneak around with elephants? And those elephants were captured during this failed attack too. Then the consul took the offensive and attacked Pyrrhus, though he was beaten back, then sallied out again with fresh troops that had been left in the camp. These men wounded the elephants Dionysius and Zonaras specifically say an elephant calf, which caused the whole of the elephants to run amok, completely destroying the cohesion of the Pyrrhic force and causing a mass rout. Honestly, this is an uncharacteristically massive blunder on Pyrrhus's part. I do wonder, though, what would have happened if the night attack actually had, gone through, if it actually had happened during the night. Because it would have been surprising at the very least, but I don't really know how effective it would have been. Also, fun fact, Dionysius says the elephants that the Romans captured were surrendered by Indian mahouts. The mahout is just the elephant driver, the one riding it and directing the elephant. But this would imply to me that these were Indian elephants and not African, which is suggested by Justin, since Pyrrhus got the elephants from Ptolemy initially. Though how he still has these elephants, I'm not sure, as he also says the 50 elephants he got from Ptolemy were for only a 2-year service. Maybe Pyrrhus renegotiated the contract? Maybe he just got new elephants from somewhere at some point somehow? Yeah, maybe he just got Indian elephants at some point. I have no idea how this would have happened. No source really goes into it. This is an interesting question, honestly. Like, how the heck, if it's true, did Pyrrhus get specifically Indian mahouts? Unless Ptolemy had sent the Indian mahouts with the... This is a whole rabbit hole that I don't need to go down right now. Let's just continue on. Eadie, caesa hostium regenti 3 So, Eadie, I'm pretty sure this is just ablative time when on that day, or on the, during the day? Not during the day, because that would imply that would be more accusative, I would think. But on that day, I think is just how it would be. Kaisa, perfect passive participle. I think we saw Kaisa last chapter too? Well, maybe not last chapter. No. The Battle of Asculum was last chapter. So yes, last chapter we saw Kaisa with the casualty numbers for the Battle of Asculum, which we're seeing again here. Hostium vigenti 3 I guess there, because hostium is genitive plural. So on that day, 23,000 of the enemy was slain. That's the whole sentence again. What the heck? But still, massively inflated numbers. Once again, Eutropius. How the heck did Pyrrhus have that many men at this point? And I might check later, but I don't think I will. I don't think any of these sources really give solid numbers for how many casualties were taken. I think Dionysius says that 2 elephants were lost, were killed, but that's just off the top of my head. I don't think main numbers were actually given by any of my sources. Let me mark this too. Kinda. Maybe not. But yeah, I actually should mark that. Curios in consulatu triumphavit. Curious in the consulship, or I guess during his consulship? Triumphavit. Triumphed. Yeah. Curious in the consulship triumphed. That's about it. Curious got a triumph for beating Pyrrhus. Which, yeah, that's a pretty big deal at this point. Primus Romam elephantos quatur duxit. Primus, I think here is an adverb, first. Romam elephantos quatur duxit. Duxit, of course, perfect active third person singular from duco. So he first, he was the first to lead. So he first led 4 elephants into Rome. Again, I think this is just accusative of movement. So Curius triumphed in the consulship. He first led 4 elephants into Rome. The first time elephants have been in the city of Rome. Pyrrhus etiam a Tarento mox recessit, et apud Argos, Graeciae civitatem, occisos est. So Pyrrhus, our subject of course, etiam, I never remember if this is a conjunction or an adverb. It is an adverb! Yay! A Tarento, of course, a prepositional phrase. I guess it's just furthermore. Furthermore, Pyrrhus. And mox is also an adverb. Soon. Recessit. I believe, yeah, from recedo, which we saw last chapter as well. So Pyrrhus, furthermore, soon retreated from Tarentum. He left Italy entirely. Et, and, apud Argos, near Argos, Graeciae civitatem, a city of Greece, occisos est. He was killed. So, furthermore, Pyrrhus soon retreated from Tarentum and near Argos, a city of Greece. He was killed. Very ignominiously, if I may add. So, only Plutarch and Justin really go into detail about Pyrrhus after leaving Italy. Though Zonaras does give the tale of his death, just not what he did before that. The other sources either end because we don't have the rest of it, like Dionysius and Appian, or simply don't care about Pyrrhus once he's out of Rome's attention, like Livy. However, since I gave you his life before Rome, let me tell you of his life after Rome as well. So Macedon and Greece were reeling from a recent invasion by a couple Celtic hordes, and had rampaged through Greece, killing one guy who had claimed the Macedonian throne. And so it fell to Antigonos Gonatas, the son of Demetrius, the guy I had mentioned back in chapter 11, who Pyrrhus served under early in his life. Pyrrhus, being Pyrrhus, had no patience for sitting around, so quickly moved to take Macedon for himself once more, despite him having no money. Like, it is specifically said that Pyrrhus has no money left after getting back from Italy. Which I guess, in that case, conquering would be a pretty good way to get some money. And as with seemingly all things Pyrrhus, he was very successful at first. He beat Antigonos Gonatas time and time again, taking Macedonia, taking Thessaly. And then he got an offer from a claimant of the Spartan throne. Because, Sparta had a couple kings, and one had apparently been exiled, cast out, and went to Pyrrhus to take back his throne. And so, Pyrrhus shifted focus again to take Sparta. Well, clearly put this guy back on his rightful throne, but really to take Sparta and the Peloponnese. And after a really, really intense siege, he was repulsed, and so set his eyes on Antigonus again. Both Antigonus and himself were nearby Argos, a city that was also in the Peloponnese, just a bit northeast from Sparta. And funnily enough, Pyrrhus actually challenged Antigonus. I don't know if it's actually one-on-one combat, but he challenged, he basically called out to Antigonus and was like, "Come fight me, you coward!" And Antigonus was like, "No." The city of Argos would not take a side. They were trying to stay neutral throughout this whole thing, which Pyrrhus would not accept. So he attacked the city, which, again, was not trying to oppose him either. And during this siege, his army broke into the city, and it was complete chaos in the city. Just street brawling throughout, basically. During this, Pyrrhus sets his sights on a young, unimportant man. Unfortunately for Pyrrhus, the man's mother was watching from the rooftop. When she saw the boy in danger, she took the closest thing to her, a roof tile, and chucked it at Pyrrhus, hitting him square in the back of the neck. Pyrrhus fell unconscious, and a couple other men dragged him into a building where they looked to chop his head off. However, Pyrrhus awoke with a stunning glare. This surprised the man trying to make the cut, causing him to miss his mark and make a very unclean cut. In fact, Plutarch says instead of the neck, he got it right in between the mouth and chin. He did get the head off, though. And so was the end of Pyrrhus. Just taken out by some random old lady and a roof tile. The head was presented to Antigonos, who gave him a proper funeral. Either that or a random projectile from the walls of Argos hit him and killed him, as Justin said. But that first story is much more entertaining, and Zonaras also gives that version of the story. So that is what I am more inclined to believe. So, to end off this little Pyrrhic adventure we've been on for these past few videos, I actually want to just straight up read a small portion from Justin, which I thought was an excellent description of everything with Pyrrhus. Pyrrhus, being raised to such a height of royal power, and not content with what had once been the object of his wishes, began to contemplate the subjugation of Greece and Asia. He had no greater delight in ruling than warfare, nor was any power able to withstand him wheresoever he directed his attack. But irresistible as he was deemed in conquering kingdoms, he also easily lost those which he subdued and acquired. So much better did he manage to gain dominion than to keep it. That truly encapsulates Pyrrhus's career. And that's really what makes him an interesting character. He gains so much yet loses it just as quickly. But either way, this is supposed to be about the Latin, not Pyrrhus. So let's move on to the reading of the whole chapter in Latin and then in English. Interjecto anno contra Pyrrhum Fabricius est missus, qui prius inter legatos sollicitarium non potuerat, quarta regni parte promissa. Tum, cum vicina castra ipse et rex haberent, medicus Pyrrhi nocte ad eum venet. Promitens venenos et Pyrrhum occisorum, si sibi aliquid polliceretur. Quem Fabricius vinctum reducius et ad dominum, Pyrrhoque dici quae contra caputeus medicus popondisset. Tum rex admiratus eum dixisse fertor. Ille est Fabricius, qui difficilius ab honestate, quam sol a corso suo averti potest. Tum rex ad Siciliam profectus est. Fabricius victis Lucanis et semnitibus triumphavit. Consules deende, Manlius Corius Dentatus, et Cornelius Lentulus adversum Pyrrhum missisunt. Corius contra eum pugnavit. Exercitum meus cegidit, ipsum Tarentum fugavit, castra cepit. Ea die, caesa hostium agenti 3 Corius in consulatu triumphavit. Primus Roma Elephantos quartur duxit. Pyrrhus etiam a Tarentum ox recessit, et apud Argos Graeciae civitatem occisus est. After a year, sent against Pyrrhus was Fabricius, who previously among the ambassadors had not been able to be tempted by a promised quarter part of a kingdom. Then, when he and the king had neighboring camps, a doctor of Pyrrhus came to him in the night, promising he would kill Pyrrhus with poison, if something was offered to him. He whom Fabricius ordered to be led back, chained to his master, and that which his doctor had promised against his head to be told to Pyrrhus. Then the king, having admired him, is reported to have said, "That man is Fabricius, who is able to be turned away from honesty more difficultly than the sun from its course." Then the king proceeded to Sicily. Fabricius, after the Lucanians and Samnites were defeated, triumphed. Then the consuls Manlius Curius Dentatus and Cornelius Lentulus were sent against Pyrrhus. Curius fought against him. He smote his army. He fled himself to Tarentum. He captured his camp. On that day 23,000 of the enemy were killed. Curius triumphed in the consulship. He first led 4 elephants into Rome. Further, Pyrrhus soon retreated from Tarentum, and at Argos, a city of Greece, he was killed. If you're still listening or watching, then thank you so much for making it to the end. I've really enjoyed making these last several videos, so it means a lot to me. Let me know too what you thought in the comments. Did you enjoy the extra context from different sources? Did I make any mistakes in my translation? Let me know. I might continue with Eutropius at a later point, but I think I'm going to focus on a few other pieces of Latin I've been meaning to make videos on, so keep an eye out for those. Until next time, valete, viatores.